example in which a monthly meeting had resolved conflict creatively, deliberately. There had not been a deliberate attempt on the part of the meeting which had been successful in resolving conflict creatively, but there was an example of a way in which conflict had been resolved and a step had been taken which had resolved the conflict, but it was not intentional.
So what I'm hearing you say, if I may, is that there have been instances where where the meeting has moved on and you've ended up in a better place, but not because you intentionally planned to,
Right.
rather because it turned out that way. Is that right?
Right.
An example of a meeting that was really split by age, that there was a young people who came and were very strong and aggressive, as opposed to older Quakers who were frightened of this.
And did that cause dissension or a split within
Yeah.
the body?
Yeah.
So the dissension was caused by virtue of the status or characteristics of the people themselves, not because of what they did. So,
Right.
is that right?
Mm-hmm.
Can you tell me more about how that expressed itself?
It remains unresolved, and some people have left the meeting.
And if I follow you, that there are folks who have one understanding of what it's like to be a Quaker, and younger folks who have a different understanding of what it's like to be a Quaker, and they need to engage each other. Did I hear you right?
That's right, but not necessarily younger people. It could be older people too, but they are new to the society,
Yeah.
and that creates a different culture.
Now, does someone see what I'm doing? Have you watched what I've been doing? Mirroring. And what do you see me do?
You respond to clarify and be sure that you've gotten what they're saying,
Right.
Sort of.
Why do I do that?
showing that you're listening,
And also to test.
and see if you've got it
Let's see
right.
if I got it right. I call it looping, she calls it mirroring, some people call it spiraling. This is skill number one. What's on your mind? Or tell me a story, or tell me what's in your heart. So, if I heard you right, is that right? Yes. Bingo. If it's yes, what has just happened? I'm suggesting that what's happened is that the person realizes that they have effectively communicated to somebody who's sympathetic and comprehends what they say. That alone, a lot of people need and don't get. If they say no, there is even a better opportunity to say, I'm sorry, and they'll explain what it is you misunderstood, and you get to do it again right here. Now we come to what's called looping, because in addition to saying, is that right? Yes, you say, why? And they tell you more. And you say, oh, so yes. Why? And they tell you more. And it goes again and again and again and again, and it spirals and becomes richer, more robust, more spiritually full. Now, I think that this technique, if you want to call it that, this is something that's taught, is actually deeply embedded in our Quaker traditions. There is something of God in that person. And what you're saying by looping is, I'm prepared for you to expose me to that. Would you please show me that? It reaffirms that person's humanity. It reaffirms that person's spiritual center. And it reaffirms our faith that every person is what? Worth listening to? You don't have to agree. You may, in the back of your mind, say, you know, I have a reservation about this. This person could be a little nuts. That's all fine. That's all fine. But right now, you're not drawing conclusions. What you're doing is looping. Try me again. Tell me, teach me, teach me. My understanding of our traditions in meeting for worship, whether for business or otherwise, is that it does not contemplate dialogue like this. This is what I think happens in business meeting, all right? In a beautifully, elegantly clerked business meeting, we are in a state of worship. Someone says, this is a square. No one argues about that. No one says, you idiot. Someone then is moved to say, I see a rectangle. The clerk hears square, the clerk hears rectangle, the meeting abides. And someone says, it's a triangle. They don't say, no, you're wrong, it's a triangle. They say that portion of the light that they hold. And then the clerk or someone else has this lovely moment and says, friends, we're looking at a wedge of cheese. And everyone says, approved. Right? Now that looks like conflict, doesn't it? And what it is inconsistent truths, or truths that look inconsistent, right? And that each mouse is tempted to say the other two are wrong. So in worship, in moments of spiritual discernment, I think we're talking a different game.
If you hear the difference between why do you want us to only serve vegan meals at potluck, and what's important to you about only offering vegan meals at potluck? Do you hear a difference? That the why can keep a person in a feel defensive, and defensive is closed. And what's important to you is inviting them to connect with their values, rather than be in an argumentative sort of, you know, here's my case, ABC. So I just would offer that as an alternative of what's important to you about it. It's an invitation to open our heart, which is where we want to be.
It occurred to me that the more we struggle with our personalities and our ways of life, we have to realize that the communion is not just among us, it's also a communion with the Spirit. And if we are struggling to communicate with each other, then the spirits that want to communicate with us are having a tough time too. So it's a two-way street. We need the Spirit, and the Spirit needs us.